Evening Grace, America. Hugh Hewitt live inside the Beltway. Thank you so much for listening today. It is the first broadcast day of the month. It happens also to be May 1 in the year of our Lord 2023. So a little bit of a tiresome exercise for some of you. I always go through my bio on the first broadcast day of the month in the first hour or the second hour or the third hour, sometimes all three, because we have new affiliates every month and they turn on the radio. They have no idea who they're listening to and they're wondering, does this fellow have any credibility whatsoever? You can be the judge of that. 475 affiliates have been the judge of that. But let me tell you why I think it is true that you ought to be listening to the Hugh Hewitt Show. Because I am from Warren, Ohio. That's really the bottom line. I come from common sense land. I am a Midwesterner. I hope I am plain-handed, open-faced, or open-handed, plain-faced. I just tell you what I think. I am usually wrong, often wrong. On some issues involving the Cleveland Browns, Indians, now Guardians, and Cavaliers. For example, on the draft, I was completely wrong this weekend, but I'm very pleased with the Browns draft. Way to go, Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski and the entire team there in Berea. However, I'm occasionally right about many things, and I think I do reflect a center-right point of view, which is the dominant point of view in America outside of the Beltway, New York, Los Angeles, and Silicon Valley. Now, they dominate the media, but I think the dominant American view is center-right. All right, that's what I believe it's true. I am particularly focused in this year on politics because, as my listeners in WFEA 1370 AM and 99 FM in Manchester, New Hampshire, and WKBK 1290 AM and 94.1 FM in Keene, and as my listeners in northern New Hampshire know, because of my Portland giant blunderbuss of a radio station, WGAN 98.5, know, candidates are all over the place in New Hampshire, as they are in Iowa. Got a spy in KILR AM 1070 in Esterville, Iowa, who clued me into the number of people who are making reservations for the local diner. I'm just glad that wherever I am, people are listening. So, you got to listen to everybody. 1-800-520-1234. Write it down, 1-800-520-1234. Okay, so I'm from Warren, Ohio. That means good roots. All right, good roots. My grandparents, all four of them, and my parents were born in Ashtabula. My dad went off to the war, came back, finished Oberlin, went to Michigan Law School, taught me to go to Michigan for law school, but stay away from their football team, so I'm an Ohio State Buckeye fan. And we wore scarlet and gray when we were living in Ann Arbor, both of us, in 1946 to 8, and me from 1980 to 1983. Before I went to Michigan Law School, though, I finished from graduating from John F. Kennedy High School, great Catholic education in Warren, Ohio, Blessed Sacrament and John F. Kennedy High School. Went to Harvard College, graduated in 1978. I got a 45th reunion coming up, in fact, this month. Looking forward to that. Not many people are going. I've got a story to tell about that after the break. After Harvard, I got my Dodge Dart Sport, drove across the country, went to work for David Eisenhower, and then after a couple of months for the one and only Richard Nixon, with whom I stayed for a couple of years until August of 1980, ghostwriting The Real War and Leaders with him, along with Ray Price and the former president. Hours and hours and hours and hours and hours with Richard Nixon in exile before he returned to New York. I helped him move back to New York. I lived in New York in 1980 at the height of the Troubles, meaning that's when you couldn't walk left, walk right, and not get mugged. And I was very glad when Rudy came along. But I like New York, love New York. But I said to the boss, Mr. President, I got to get out of here. He said, I get that. Go get your law degree. I went to Michigan, and at Michigan, did fine, got out, had a lot of offers. But I went to clerk on the D.C. Circuit for a couple of judges named Robin McKinnon. And from there, I went to the Department of Justice as a special assistant to two attorneys general, Bill Smith, Ed Meese, doing their Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act warrants. So FISA court was my domain, and I had all the clearances in the world, and what I saw changed my point of view forever. Even though I'd written The Real War with Richard Nixon, I already knew about realpolitik, but then I realized how many spies are in the United States, and we follow them around. We follow them around, and we're still following them around. Over to the White House counsel's office under the wonderful Fred Feeling and Dick Hauser. Dick taught me how to get strokes on the first tee and be a good lawyer. Fred just taught me how to be a good lawyer. Had a wonderful time there, then off to the agencies, ending up in D.C. as the general counsel, acting director of OPM. Confirmed by the United States Senate, by the way, 100-0, so that's kind of fun. You may call me the Honorable Hugh Hewitt when you call it this Honorable Hugh, not because I'm from Asia, but because I am confirmed by the United States Senate. It's a lifetime honorific. Nobody uses I can't get my Genghis Kate granddaughter to call me Honorable Baba. Doesn't happen. Any event, off I go into the private sector, practiced law for 30 years, went out to California, moved back to California to build and open the Richard Nixon Library. And then I served on a bunch of government agencies while practicing law, the Air Quality Management District, the California Arts Council, the Orange County Children and Families Commission, 17 years of doing that. Meanwhile, I was building a media career, first on KFI AM 560, and then over on KCET, doing 5 nights a week of television, then on both when I opened up this show in July of 2000 with Generalissimo. 1 week later, Adam joined us. The three of us are still rolling along, although Dwayne is significantly smaller than he was back then when we started. Generalissimo was, he was probably 270 pounds when he started, but he's slimmed down now to 190.
I was never 270.
Well, myPhDweightLoss.com is a great sponsor of our show, so I was just giving them a little extra
They may
crap.
have kept me from eventually getting there someday, but I was never that big.
How big did you get?
The most I ever weighed was 250.
All right, so you're at 190 now, so you can drop 60 pounds, American. DeJuan Jones, drafted by the Browns, is coming in at 380, and I think the Browns ought to call up 864
644
1900. That's
864
644
1900.
And have DeJuan enroll in myPhDweightLoss.com.
Not to be confused with
that young man has got to get down to
375.
Nah, more like 365. But he's a giant. He was called a human orca. His nickname on the Ohio State Buckeyes is Big Thanos. That's how big that man is. That man is
not the average,
6'8".
not the average size Thanos, but the big Thanos.
The big Thanos.
Yes.
Extra large big Thanos. I don't know where he gets his clothes, but he's a wonderful kid, and I hope he does. We also got Luke Whippler. It was a great draft. But did you stay on your diet this weekend?
I did. If he snaps his fingers, does half the O-line disappear?
They do. It's just he's a great addition, as is Luke Whippler. MyPhDweightLoss.com, Berea. Listen up. Get all your people. I ran into my friend Jim, and Jim operates a Medi Weight Loss in Virginia. It's an in-person medically supervised weight loss, and I was talking to him. We got hundreds of people going to him, and that's great. I love Jim, and I love MediWeight. It's down on Van Dorn in Alexandria. He is running a great weight loss program. I told him myPhDweightLoss.com, 864
644
1900 has become a major sponsor, and people are just using it because it works. It's not chemical. Neither is Jim's. It's just a wonderful way to do it. And so, Browns, go call them. Let me go back, if I can, to my bio. That's Dwayne. He's the producer. After practicing law and broadcasting out of California from 2000, nationally syndicated show began in 2000, July 10th of 2000, same day as my anniversary to the fetching Mrs. Hewitt, to whom I've been married 40 wonderful years. We were requested by Salem to move back to the Beltway. Bill Bennett was retiring from the morning shift, and I said, I'll do morning drive, and you betcha I'll do morning drive. Meanwhile, I'm still teaching at Chapman University Law School. I'm awaiting the final exams. I can hear the screams from here. I got out of town when they see that exam. My Con Law 1 and Con Law 2 students. I've been teaching at Chapman since the doors opened in 1995. And I don't practice law anymore except for friends and family. I do maintain my licenses, but I'm not practicing anymore. I am just teaching and doing this program and being on special report tonight and writing for the Washington Post. And maybe I'll write another book. I don't know. I'm going to talk to Tom Spence at Regnery about that today because I got an idea for a book. I live in the Beltway now, and I escaped to California for a couple of months of sunshine. I go up north and hang out with my brother-in-law and sister-in-law and my wife for a couple of months longer this summer because New Hampshire beckons. The campaign is underway, as I will tell you. I've written 16 books. I write weekly for the Washington Post. All I do is talk and write. It's a good life. It's a great life, but I'm here to serve you. Here to serve you. That's why you listen to the Hugh Hewitt Show. News you need, analysis you want every morning from the center-right perspective. I am also running the Grand Old Pod, which you can only get from the Huniverse. You have to subscribe to the Huniverse. Go to Huniverse.com, and you get every minute of this radio show commercial-free. You also get the Grand Old Pod every day. I do it alone on Monday and Wednesdays. Dwayne takes over on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Republican news by Republicans for Republican. And I'll be on special report tonight because that's the only thing I do in TV land anymore. I've worked for CNN and for NBC. I've been on ABC and CBS, but the only thing I do now is Brett Baer's show because it's the last serious, fair show in America about the news. It's neither all right or all left. It's down the middle. I don't know Brett's politics. I don't know who he votes for president. He's an old-fashioned John Chancellor, David Brinkley, Chet Huntley, Walter Cronkite kind of guy, which is why I like his show. It's why I'll be on it tonight. on the panel. Don't know who's going to be on the panel with me. I hope you tune into that. And I hope you tell your friends, listen every day, coming back with news of the weekend. There is no more First Republic Bank. Thank God. Those poor people got wiped out. We'll tell you about it after the break on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Whenever I play for this Five for Fighting song, I am always reminded, a long time ago, in Warren, Ohio, the Episcopal Church ran Tuesday night dances all summer long. You had to be in high school. And so there are, 15 high schools within driving distance of the Episcopal Church on North Road. And it was always a blast. And the band singing, it feels so right. And it's just right out of John Androsik's 80s or 90s childhood and my 70s teen years. And I don't know if they do it anymore. I don't know if kids actually will leave their devices and their gaming worlds to go to a Tuesday night dance. They should. It's like awkward cubed, but it's still great fun in the summer when it's, a million degrees in northeastern Ohio. My uncle's Army Buddies was the standard. I mean, they played Smoke on the Water, of course, because everyone had to play Smoke on the Water. Even the only band that my high school band ever came up with, I had not taken up the axe yet, so I couldn't help out the band at John F. Kennedy High School. But they had dances after football. I mean, I don't know if the culture of high school is still that way anymore, if it ends up with, people shooting each other. But it was still, that's my favorite song to open up a week. GOP 2024 hopefuls audition against Biden with attacks on competence and age over the weekend, as Maeve Reston in the Post note that the campaign is waking up. President Trump is playing an Iowa appearance on the same day as Governor DeSantis visits the state. Look, it's real. Ron DeSantis finishing up a 4-country tour of South Korea and Japan, Israel, and England. Gave a big interview yesterday to The Telegraph, which I'll talk about on the Grand Old Pod today at length. The Grand Old Pod is offered by me on Mondays and Wednesdays. You got to get it. You got to belong to the universe. It is not highly concentrated Hugh. That is the condensed version of this radio show. About a third of it makes it on to the highly concentrated Hugh broadcast or the YouTube channel. But you got to subscribe to Highly Concentrated Hugh, and that's free. And you got to subscribe to the Grand Old Pod, and that's not free. You got to belong to the universe, and you get the text. I'm learning how to make the text works today so that I can talk to my rolling focus group of the thousands of you who belong to the universe. Tim Scott sets May 22nd, 21 days away from his announcement for 2024. And I also note that Governor DeSantis' allies, a super PAC supporting Ron DeSantis, turned its fire on Nikki Haley this weekend. So it's on. Now, if I get my black book out, my black book is where I keep track of everyone who's in and who's not. Governor Greg Abbott, question mark. Of course, former President Trump is in. Governor Chris Christie, question mark. Governor Ron DeSantis, that's a yes, he's in. Ambassador and Governor Nikki Haley, she's in. Governor Asa Hutchinson, he's in. Governor Kristi Noem, big question mark, don't think so. Vice President Mike Pence, he is in. Senator Tim Scott, he is in. Governor Chris Sununu, big question mark. Governor Glenn Youngkin, big question mark. Now, I'm not sure about all these things. I don't know about my question marks, but I'm sure about those who are going. They are each invited here every 2 weeks. They can't live with Vivek Ramaswamy on the show like he was on Friday. And every 2 weeks he's welcome back, as is Governor Hutchinson, as is Senator Scott, Ambassador Haley, as is the former president, as is the Florida governor, every 2 weeks during the year that we have underway. And it is a year. It's less than a year. And I went to the Green Papers. That's the website where you have to really do your homework to figure out what's going on, because the Green Papers is not for the faint-hearted. The Green Papers is a little bit dense, but it's not like news items by John Ellis. That's my morning brief of what's gone on in the world. The Green Papers tells you about the rule set for each. There are 4 kinds of primaries: winner take all, proportional awarding of delegates, a mixed system, and a completely bizarre caucus system in some states like Iowa, in which I still don't understand how they award Iowa delegates. But big 4, and most of them are winner take all. Some of them are proportional. Some of them are modified proportional, and some of them no one understands unless they run the state party. The dates, however, there are also 2 other kinds of primaries: open, close, or 3 other kinds. Open primary, anyone can vote. Come in and get a ballot. That's Virginia's system. Closed. No one can vote unless you've been registered as a member of the party for a date certain. In New Hampshire, it's going to be 2 months this year, I think, or Iowa, it's going to be 2 months. You have to register 2 months before, no same day. And then modified open, you get to vote for your party, and if you're a non-declared independent voter, you get to vote in either primary that you want. New Hampshire is the latter. Because the Democratic National Committee moved the South Carolina Democratic primary to Saturday, February 3rd, to let Joe Biden not campaign and not show up and still win, it is expected, according to the Green Papers, that both the Republican and the Democratic New Hampshire primary will be on Tuesday, January 23rd. Why? Because New Hampshire has a statute. Quote, from the statute, the state law, the presidential primary election shall be held on the second Tuesday in March or on a date selected by the Secretary of State, which is 7 days or more immediately preceding the date on which any other state shall hold a similar election, whichever is earlier of each year, when a president of the United States is to be elected or the year previous. So, okay, South Carolina Democrats have moved their primary up to February 3rd. That means as of today, we are looking at the New Hampshire primary being the Tuesday, January the 23rd. All right, it's going to be cold in New Hampshire. I'll be up there in the North Country. I ain't going to miss it. I got Studio North established last year, so I can cover this year completely every day, driving down to New Hampshire if I have to. Driving past the liquor store outlets. Talked to Governor Sununu about that last week, because somebody's got to tell you about these rules. Somebody's got to tell you about these candidates. And somebody's got to follow what they do over the weekend. The former president was on the war room with his former aide, Steve Bannon, cut number one, taken out after Governor DeSantis again. Donald Trump with Steve Bannon.
Total assault.
Total assault.
Because we're winning in the polls. If I wasn't up 40, 50...
The polls are 62-16.
Well, DeSantis is failing badly. Ron DeSanctimonious. I mean, you know, it's always bad. You endorse somebody, he's dead. He's over his political career. He's going to be looking for a job. He'll be lucky to get a job. Comes to me, begs me for a endorsement. I give it to him. He ends up winning the election, winning the nomination, winning the election by numbers that you wouldn't believe. I mean, he was so far down, he was gone. And then they shout to him a couple of years later, will you run against the president? I have no comment. Now, no comment means the answer is yes, right? But today a very interesting thing happened. He said he's going to form a committee. He's going to form an exploratory committee to determine, well, that's a big step because he was never looking at committees. Now he's looking at committees. It's amazing what being 40 down does.
But
right?
this is the consultants and donors in back of him. This is the guys who are going to make 35.
The donors are
million.
largely leaving him now. You know,
I think so.
In fact, I will tell you off the record, off the record, except for the millions of people that watch your show, because your show is great. I mean, your show,
it's
the
our,
war room. This guy's a warrior.
It's our
you
audience.
know, whether they like him or not, it doesn't basically make any difference. But he is a warrior. There aren't too many. But what's happening is the donors are calling me right now because the donors follow the polls. And when they see a guy getting clobbered, but think of it, he was a lousy politician because before he met me, before I gave him the endorsement, he was at 3.
So the president, the former president, is doing exactly what he did in 2015. Train all of your fire. Look, I watched it up close and personal on the debate stages, and it was elegantly executed. No one understood what he was doing, but he's doing it again. In 2015, Jeb Bush led all the polls. So Donald Trump trained all of his fire exclusively on Jeb exclamation point, until the former Florida governor went away. In the meantime, he also got rid of Scott Walker. He paid no attention to Scott Walker. Jeb Bush had the money and the dollars and the staff and the name, and Donald Trump just went after him relentless. So we had 17 people running. We're going to have 6 to 8 max. We might be down to 4 or 5. I just don't know if Governor Christie is now not returning my mail. I don't know. Governor Christie used to text me back whenever I asked him on. Now I think he's in the middle of actually deciding. Asa Hutchinson is running on with CNN's Dana Bash this weekend. Cut number 7, Asa Hutchinson, former governor of Arkansas, former head of Homeland Security, former congressman, fine fellow, 72 years old, talking with Dana Bash, cut number 7.
Well, let's be more specific about Disney. I don't like what Disney said. about the legislation that I would have supported in Florida. But it's not the role of government to punish a business when you disagree with what they're saying or a position that they take. If that was the view of a Republican, then we're going to be in all kinds of trouble in our businesses in blue states if they start punishing businesses for taking a more conservative speech or position. And so I don't understand a conservative punishing a business that's the largest employer in the state. In Arkansas, and as governors, we recruit industry. We support our industry because it provides jobs. And we're not dictating to them what their speech is. To me, that's a conservative position, and you err when you go otherwise.
I do not think both Nikki Haley and Asa Hutchinson have gone after Governor DeSantis because of his ongoing political battle with Disney. I do not think that's good politics, but I don't decide these things. I just report them all. I do not believe the Republican electorate is upset with Ron DeSantis for putting Disney in their place and taking away their special governing, nor do I believe it is unconstitutional, nor do I believe it is unusual. They went after him, and they threw a searchlight on their special district. So what goes around comes around, screw around and find out is the gentleman's way of saying it. Got to play something from the chair. Ronna McDaniel was on Fox News Sunday with Shannon Bream, and Ron is a great party chairwoman. She said the obvious, cut number 13.
We need to remember that it's Joe Biden. And I think the voters feel that. They feel that angst. And they say that to me all the time. We need party unity. We need to bring everybody together because what they're doing to our country is frightening. We're not going to have the America we know and love if this continues. If they stack the Supreme Court, if they get rid of the filibuster, if they abandon energy independence, if they're so beholden to China. I mean, look at China is running this White House in a lot of ways. China is the reason fentanyl's coming across our border. China is taking our kids' data on TikTok. We sold our strategic petroleum reserves to China. This is an administration that is more China first than America first, and the American people want a president who cares about them.
Well said, Madam Chair. Ronna McDaniel doing the work for everyone, plowing the field, preparing the battleground for 2024. Don't go anywhere, America. Dick's Sporting Goods has lost a lot of customers since they took guns away from their sporting shops, and Selena Zito is on the story. She joins me this morning, columnist without portfolio. She works, of course, for the Washington Examiner, the Pittsburgh Press, Post Press, whatever it is down there in Pittsburgh land. I'm not sure. The Yinzers have different names than the rest of us. And, of course, the New York Post. Good morning, Selena. How are you?
Good morning, Sunshine. How are you?
I am terrific. It's a great column. People can find it at selenazito.com or follow you on Twitter as you go backwards and forward, Selena Zito. Tell us about Dick's, what they did and where their customers went.
So in 2019, Dick's made the decision after the Parkland shooting not to phase out the purchase of guns and ammunition. And it's not that they made that decision. It's the spectacle that they made out of it. They went on Mr. Stack, Ed Stack, who lives here in Pittsburgh, made a big sort of spectacle about it. He went on NPR, MSNBC. He did these sort of thoughtful, moody interviews. And then he wrote a book about it. So he sort of almost made money off of of what he did, but also off of the shooting. And it drove a ton of customers away. Now, that doesn't take away the fact that they're the largest sporting good company in the country. However, when you say that, that sounds extremely large, but the market share is very small. There's a ton of sporting good companies in the country, and their prices are very high. So they sort of lost touch with their customer base. So a lot of their customers have moved to Dunham's. It is a Troy-based Michigan sporting good company. It's privately owned, does not get into politics either way. And if you go in there, they're very value priced. It's all, and when you go in there, there's almost this sense that you're in an old time general store, like a bait and tackle store, right? It's a focus on sporting goods and fishing and outdoors life with some shirts. When you go in Dick's, it's shirts and and clothing everywhere, and they've really minimalized their the things that you buy to use for sporting goods for
Yeah,
sports.
I got to tell you, Selena, I went and saw my 9-year-old grandson play baseball this weekend, The Flash, and I looked out there, having read the idea that there are lots of gun buyers and lots of customers. There are, 50 little boys running around, and they all have shoes on. And those shoes, I remember that, they're out of them every 6 months. They're growing. You can't wear baseball cleats or soccer cleats longer than 3 months. You got to, store them and hope the next kid use them or give them the neighbor. But you're always going to a sporting goods store for shoes. And so Dick's not only sent their customer away, they sent those customers away. When you get political, you lose customer. It doesn't make a lick of sense for a retailer to have a political point of view.
It doesn't. And here's the larger point, I think, is that corporations are contributing to this sort of siloing off of everything that we do, what we eat, what we drink, where we shop. They add to the division as opposed to becoming sort of benevolent, right? Just these neutral places where you go to shop, or what you drink, or what you eat. And so they've ingrained politics in everything we do, and people are exhausted by it.
Yeah, it is. And by the way, there's also in this survey many new gun owners in 2021, 5.4 million first-time gun owners, 33% of whom were women, and many of whom were black and brown Americans, people of color, buying their first weapon. I thought that was fascinating, Selena.
Yeah, so I've been tracking this since the beginning of the pandemic, just to see the social impact of the pandemic in terms of protection and empowerment. And the gun owner of America today is very reflective of our ascendant population, right? It's non-white, it's young, and it's educated, and it understands, as much as your traditional gun owner, the empowerment that you get from protecting yourself, your treasure, your family, but also the manual dexterity and the sharpness it requires to go to the range and go shooting. It's also fun.
I got to tell you, there was a tragedy in Texas over the weekend where a guy in the country without permission went next door and killed 5 of his neighbors. That's everywhere. But what you see nowhere in those stories is 5.4 million new gun owners. Why did they buy a gun? Why were they moved to buy a gun? And Selena, I know you will write about that, because you always do. Follow her, Zito Selena, on Twitter. And if you want this and all of her columns, go sign up for them at selenazito.com. Selena, always good to talk to you in the Yidzer Report. Don't go anywhere, America. Jake Sherman may or may not be ahead. He usually is on a Monday. But he's in Israel with Speaker McCarthy, so I don't know if he's calling in or if he's in the Knesset where Kevin McCarthy is speaking at this hour. Stay tuned. We'll find out, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Hi, America. Bonjour. Hi, Canada. Jake Sherman of Punchbowl News. Go to punchbowlnews.com. Get their free morning newsletter. Is in Israel with Kevin McCarthy, but he's available. Good morning, Jake. Where in Israel are you? I thought the speaker was at the Knesset.
I'm at the Knesset, Hugh. I'm sitting with Hadass Gold, who I used to work with at Politico many moons ago, who's now the Jerusalem correspondent for CNN. So I am in Israel, and I am readying for Kevin McCarthy's arrival here at the Knesset.
Last time I was there, it was with John Bolton. It's always good to travel with the VIP, because then you get all the good stuff. Tell me about the trip thus far. How long you been there?
Well, I'm not traveling with him specifically. He arrived here from Jordan. I got here this morning on a flight from Newark, so I didn't get any of the good stuff, but I will be here until tomorrow. A very quick trip, a very far and quick trip.
Now, it's interesting. Will the speaker give the American Press Corps a chance to ask some questions about what he's doing there and when Prime Minister Netanyahu will be addressing the House again?
He is talking to the press corps. He has a press conference. I believe it's 5 o'clock in Israel, 5:30 in Israel, which will be around 10 a.m. in Washington and on the East Coast. That's actually interesting. I was just talking to some folks here about whether Bibi will address the joint session again. I have to imagine he will, but he's waiting for a White House invite, and that hasn't come through yet. So
well, that's because of the judicial overhaul that Team Biden is messing around with. Also, Jake, have you heard anything on the debt showdown and whether or not President Biden is ending the embargo on talking to the Republicans who have passed a plan?
Well, that's going to be one of the questions I will ask the speaker about today at his press conference. I've not heard that he has. I think that I've gotten some signals of softening from some Democrats about what kind of deal might be possible. But listen, Hugh, it's not entirely clear. It's not entirely clear, and time is ticking. But we should this week hear more from Treasury about that X date, about the default date, which is going to come this summer.
Last question, Jake Sherman. I read Dan Balls, because I always do, Dean of Press Reporters in D.C., suggesting that Joe Biden has a lot to lose from a debt showdown that goes sideways, but also suggesting the Republicans do too. Actually, Republicans have put a plan out there. I don't think they have anything to lose if we default now, other than the money in the stock market that they'll lose. But this is on the president's desk. Does the press corps share that view?
I think that here's the dynamic, Hugh. It is true that only the House has passed the bill. The Senate has not passed the bill, and the president has not. And the president's limited in what he can do, Hugh. I mean, he can't lift the debt ceiling on his own. So I think that is basically the view of the press corps and the view of people. I mean, people say that this bill was crazy. It was too much. It can never pass the Senate. All of that is true. That doesn't mean anything, though, because the Senate, as you know, in legislating, both chambers have to pass something, and the president has to sign it. So the House has made its position clear. Now it's time for the Senate to do so, and the White House to step in and get in the game a little bit.
Now, Jake, I will continue and run with the ball here. Thank you for joining me from the Knesset. I've never been inside the Knesset. Are you guys roped off from the members, or is it a good view?
Well, right now I'm in the cafeteria, so I'm not, but I'm going to head right now to the front of the building where McCarthy is expected to walk in shortly. So I will,
all right, go forth and
I'll tweet them to you.
Go do your job. We'll talk about it next week. Jake Sherman from Punchbowl News. Go to Punchbowl News. Thank you, Jake.